My name is Brian Smith, and I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. My water. Thank you, Brad, for asking me to do this tonight. It really is truly an honor to be up here and be able to speak and share my story with you guys. Man, I got a couple of comments about my suspenders when I came in here tonight. Apparently, y'all didn't know that Wallace wasn't the only person that could wear suspenders. I think my suspenders are nicer than Wallace's, personally. No, but I am really grateful to be here. This is my home group. I've got a sobriety date. It's March 27th, 2015. I've got a service position in this home group. I've got a sponsor. He's got a sponsor, and I've got the wonderful privilege to sponsor some guys. And I got a couple of service commitments outside of just going to meetings in my home group. And I tell you all that stuff because that's what makes my life worthwhile today. All the stuff that was told for me to do in Alcoholics Anonymous. And hopefully that makes me a member in good standing. I really love Alcoholics Anonymous. I was one of those people growing up that I never really felt like I fit in. I always felt like I should fit in, like I had the right to be a part of this world and you guys, but I could never make myself feel like integrated into society and into the people that were around me. I always felt different. I always felt less than. And when I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, you guys graciously welcomed me here and made me feel like I was a part. And I'll be forever grateful to you guys for that. It's a truly wonderful feeling to be a part of this home group and be a part of Alcoholics Anonymous as a society. I think I got my house cleaning out of the way. I'll give you a little bit about my past. I'm supposed to do a couple things up here. The book tells me I got a little task that I'm supposed to perform while I'm up here. I'm supposed to tell you what I was like, what happened, and what it's like, what I'm like today. But I'm also supposed to tell you, how I grew into a relationship with God. So I really hope that I can do that. I was born at that little hospital right down the street in August 21st, 1991, to a couple of pretty good parents. I never really wanted for much growing up. Let me rephrase. I never needed for much. I had everything I needed. I wanted everything. I was never satisfied. I was spoiled is what the problem was. I think they gave me a little too much. And I spent a lot of my time comparing, what I had with what you had. And if you had something nicer than me, then I wanted that. And if I couldn't get that, then you were obviously better than I was. And, thus started my feeling of being less than. That started at a very early age. I remember that and, being as little as kindergarten. And just comparing myself to other people and not measuring up. And feeling like I should be able to, like I'm meant to be here. Like you guys are. I knew in my heart that y'all were no better than me, but I didn't feel like that. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like that was what was going on inside of me. I got two really. My mom is an absolutely loving, most wonderful person in the world. She loves me with all her heart. She'd do anything for me. It almost killed me. My dad is an alcoholic. He's self-proclaimed. I'm not calling him that. A bunch of y'all know him. I got a couple of uncles that are in these rooms. One's right back there. I was born and bred to come to these rooms, I think. I got a cousin who's in and out of here. She'll probably be back. She's not here right now. Hopefully she'll come back. So it runs in my family, and I really do believe this is a family illness. And I got a lot of mixed messages about alcoholism growing up. My mom and my dad would tell me these things about how I get stern warnings about drinking, and if I got to the age where I thought I was going to drink or whatever, like be careful, it runs in the family. And then in the same breath, my dad would tell me these crazy, awesome, wonderful stories about him getting drunk and having a good old time with his buddies and having long drive competitions on Broad Street and stuff like that after going to the bar. And I was like, you're confusing me. Like, you say it's bad, but you make it sound really, really good. And I kind of want to do that. And, I went on through those early years and everything was pretty good. I I got to, my dad was an alcoholic, and I got to see a lot of those things that if you're familiar with alcoholism and your parents or anything like that, you know what I'm talking about. The arguments, the yelling, the screaming, the fighting, stuff like that. And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't really understand it. I would get my dad saying one thing, my mom saying the other thing. I was just really confused about what was going on. And my mom and my dad ended up getting a divorce when I was about 8 or 9 years old, something like that. And I loved my dad very much. He was my baseball coach growing up. He was with me. He was there. And then, you know, they got divorced. And after a little bit of time, he ended up leaving. His alcoholism got the better of him, and he took off. And I didn't have a dad anymore, and I blamed him, and I blamed God for that. And I had a really big resentment at both of those people because of that. I remember right around the age of 12, I think, I made I was somewhat religious growing up. We went to church. I knew who God was, I guess, and I knew what the Bible was and stuff like that. But my mom would always tell me, you know, when I would have these fits about my dad leaving and not coming back, because he missed everything. Everything that was important to me, he missed it. Birthdays, baseball tournaments, graduation, all that good stuff. He missed it, and I was very upset and very angry. And my mom would tell me to pray, and I remember having a conversation with her one time about, you know, I'm like, screw that dude. He ain't doing nothing for me. He ain't bringing my dad back. Talking about God, right? He ain't bringing my dad back. He ain't helping me at all. Like, I don't see the point of talking to the guy anymore. I'm done. And I washed my hands. And it was around that same time, 12 years old, that I was introduced to alcohol for the first time. I remember very clearly. We had a wonderful time. Me and my buddy got his older sister to go get us a 12-pack of Bud Light. I drank 6. He drank 6. About that third one got down, I got that nice, calm, just cool, everything's all right, all that anxiety that I felt, all that less than, all that you're not good enough, all that stuff just melted away. And I was free. And instantly, I don't know if it was conscious or subconscious, I made a connection with that. You know, I made a connection with the feeling of being free with alcohol, you know. And I chased that feeling for a large part of my life. And I just really loved what alcohol did for me. You know what I mean? I'm one of those dudes. I've been sober for a little while now, and I don't try and push not drinking on people. I work with some people who drink, and if anything, I advocate their drinking. I don't know if this is bad for a recovered alcoholic to say, but if they're getting the feeling that I got from alcohol, like, and their life is not complete and total crap, like, go for it. You know what I mean? Keep getting it, because I know what that did for me. And if you're feeling like the way I was feeling, like, I know you're feeling good. I'll be waiting for you. We got a seat. But it was around that time, you know, 13, 14 years old. I was pretty angry at the world, and the only time I could really feel happy, I wasn't happy at home, and my mom noticed it a lot. I wasn't really good at being alone. I needed to be around people constantly, because when I was alone, my thoughts just irked the mess out of me, and I couldn't be alone with myself. It wasn't very fun for me, and I started seeing this counselor, and I loved going to that counselor. It started off about me talking about stuff with my dad, and then on through, I saw her from the age of like 14 all the way to about probably 19 or 20. And I loved going to see her. And I thought it was because I was getting something out of it and she was helping me. But, you know, looking back on it after I've gotten sober, I never told her the truth. And I think that I liked it so much is because that was just an hour of time that I could just go and talk about myself. I got to talk about me for a whole hour. And this woman would just feed right into the crap that I fed to her and just make me feel so good. I'd make her feel like I was the victim, and she'd be like, it's okay, you're all right, and this and that. And I love going to see her because I got to talk about me so much. On up into high school, alcohol didn't have a very large effect on me getting in trouble or anything like that. Those early years, 14, 15, 16, it was around 16 years old, I got my license, that, you know, a little bit of freedom, that I was able to, you know, start drinking a little bit more often. obviously I couldn't drink all the time, but I remember when the times that I did drink, I would get like just insanely drunk. I always thought I could handle myself pretty well. I thought that I was doing good when I drank. I thought that I, had stuff under control, and I was like the one that, made it to the end of the party and didn't cause a whole lot of problems. And I was talking to one of my buddies not too long ago that I used to drink with, and I had to go make an amends to him, and I found out that I was wrong about that. He told me, I sat down and talked with him. We were talking about stories from the past and stuff like that. And apparently, every time I got drunk, I was just completely and totally housed. And like I just caused problems all the time. And I didn't know that. And it's really weird that my idea of what the truth used to be it can be changed with a simple conversation with somebody from my past. That my truth is not necessarily the real truth. He would tell me that every time he saw me when I was drinking, I was completely and totally messed up. And apparently I'm like that dude that the big book talks about, like every time you see him, he's more or less insanely drunk. I was that guy, and I didn't know that. It was pretty cool to find that out. That's kind of how it went on. I was in school, and I was doing well in school for a little while, and things, alcohol and other things became more of a priority for me. I was getting in trouble a little bit, coming home drunk and stuff like that. I remember the first time that I came home drunk, my mom caught me. I went to a buddy of mine's house, and he had like a keg from the night before. He had a party, and I had a sober guy with me, and he was going to be the driver. So we went through the whole night, got really drunk, and got in the car to leave, and he gets in the front seat, and he looks down, he's like, I can't drop a stick. And I was like, all right, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to work the pedals and the gears, and you're going to work the steering wheel. And we got about a few miles down the road, and I figured out that I could do this pretty well when I was drunk. And that started my career of being a fantastically bad drunk driver. I love driving drunk. I drove drunk everywhere I went. You couldn't keep me from behind the wheel of a car, when I was drinking. I don't know why, and looking back on it, I'm very grateful that I never killed anybody or myself doing that kind of stuff, because there was plenty of nights where I'd wake up at my house the next morning or wake up somewhere the next morning and wouldn't know how I got there. My car would be in the front yard sideways, and I didn't know what was going on. And that kind of characterized my drinking. I would go to a party, I would go hang out with friends, and I would drink to get to that happy place and where I could hang out with you guys and mingle and have a good time and be able to talk and have fun. And then I'd wake up the next morning, and I wouldn't know how that happened. Every time I put it in my body, it's like it wouldn't stop. I couldn't stop drinking. That phenomenon craving was working on me from a very early age. You know what I mean? I remember the first time I blacked out, I was 15, and they gave me a half gallon of Southern Comfort 100 proof, and I woke up. I looked at the clock. It was about 11:30. I woke up the next morning in a different house, wearing different clothes, and they told me I stayed up till 4 o'clock in the morning, causing all kinds of problems. And they said it was really funny and I was really entertaining, and I didn't see a problem with it. I had a great time doing all that stuff. Alcohol. Those early years, man, I had a wonderful time. I don't want to be one of those speakers who just kind of makes it out like my whole drinking career wasn't fun at all. I had a great time for a few years. I had a lot of fun, and it wasn't until after high school, I barely scraped through there. All my friends were applying to colleges and stuff like that, and I never did that. I didn't think about the future. I only thought about the weekend. Who am I going to get up with? Where are we going this weekend? What's going on? I didn't try and apply to anywhere. Not a single place I didn't apply to. And everybody else did, and they all went off to college, and I went to the local community college for about a month, and then I got tired of that and left because I got better things to do. I had to party. I had to get messed up. If you're anything like me, when I was sober, I wasn't happy. When I was sober, I wasn't comfortable. And the only way I could get sober or get happy was to get under the influence of something. You know what I mean? Now, drugs are a big part of my story. I'm not going to talk about them a whole lot, but just know that there was a whole lot of outside issues going on throughout this whole thing. it wasn't just drinking for me. I was taking anything and everything that you had to try and get messed up because I couldn't function sober. 18 years old, I ended up getting a string of trouble. I got 3 underage drinking tickets in that 1 year, and I was doing these. I was smoking weed and stuff like that too, and this is when things started kind of looking like there was problems, because I would go to I'd go to my probation officer. They'd give me this date, a month in the future, where you have to be here. When you get here, we're going to give you a piss test, and if you don't pass that piss test, you have the possibility of being violated. Now, I knew that a month in advance, and I would still, smoke weed, do my thing, all the way up until the day before, and be wanting, be thinking, all right, I need to stop. I need to quit. This needs to get out of my system. I need to be able to pass that drug test to be able to not get violated. And I couldn't never make myself stop. You know what I mean? Plenty of times when, I was supposed to be in school or something like that, going to school the next day, and I knew I probably shouldn't go over to these people's houses and get really drunk or anything like that, and I'd go over there and plan to have a few beers or something like that, and I'd black out. I didn't understand that that once I started, I wasn't going to be able to stop, and I didn't understand why I couldn't do that. I didn't really look at it very hard, but that's the kind of stuff that was happening to me. And about 19 years old, my life had gotten pretty bad. I was drinking a whole lot. I got fired from a couple jobs, and I was no, I hadn't gotten fired from that job yet. I kept that same job all the way up until I went to treatment the first time, and my life was pretty bad. And I didn't, I always thought, looking back on it, that I wasn't ready or whatever. But I found this letter that I wrote to myself before I went to treatment, talking about how bad my life was and how I needed to stop. And I could tell by the way I wrote that letter that I really wanted to stop, Then I went to this treatment center, and about 2 weeks in, I'm arguing with these counselors that I got about how their steps are dumb, and I don't need to do that. Y'all are just addicted to AA, and I just need to, pull myself up by the bootstraps and be a man about this thing. That's what I thought. I thought that if I went to Alcoholics Anonymous, which is what they were telling me to do, that I would be dependent on y'all. And I need to be able to depend on myself to get through this. I thought that's what I was supposed to be able to do. And about 2 weeks in there, after a lot of counsel with my fellow treatment center patients, I figured out that this is just an over-exaggeration, that I just need to quit doing that hard stuff, and I'm just going to drink. I'm just going to be able to drink, and we'll keep it at that. So I got out of that treatment center. I started drinking. Got fired from one job. Kept on drinking. Got kicked out of a house. Got another job. Moved in with another friend of mine. Just sat there, and I got a job. Got fired from that job for drinking on the job. This whole time I'm under the impression that I don't have a problem with alcohol. I really didn't think I did. Honestly, to my core, I didn't believe that I had a problem with alcohol, but I'm getting fired left and right because of drinking. I thought my problems were that other stuff. I really did. And so I got fired from that second job. I'm just kind of kicking it on this dude's couch while he goes to school and comes home and finds me drunk. And that went on for a couple months before he got tired of me, and he told me I had to leave. So I went and moved back in with my mom, who is my enabler. She's my saving grace. Like she whenever I fall, she's there to catch me. No matter how badly I've treated her, no matter the things that I've done, she was always there. She wouldn't let me just go. She had to try and help me. And I don't blame her. Like, she watched my dad go through that horrible stuff that he went through, and then she was watching her son go down that same exact path. And I did horrible things to that woman. You know what I mean? Not really physically, but emotionally, I did some really bad damage, because I couldn't see past myself. I heard coming into Alcoholics Anonymous, people saying stuff like, I was selfish and self-centered to the core and stuff like that. And for a long time I believed that, and I don't anymore. What I believe today is that at my core, I'm not selfish and self-centered. At my core, I'm made by God. You know what I mean? I'm created by God, and God lives inside of me. At my core, that's what's at my core, is love and the want to be a part of you guys. It's covered up by selfishness and self-centeredness, you know what I mean? And I couldn't see past that to put my friends and my family first. You know what I mean? If something that they had was coming in between me and my drinking, I didn't want to do a lot of the things that I did, but I had to. You know what I mean? I didn't want to steal the money out of my mom's purse. I didn't want to steal money out of my sister's piggy bank. You know, there's stuff that I did. There's priceless family heirlooms that are gone. You know, because I couldn't help myself but go in there and take it. Something came over me. I didn't want to do these things while I was doing them, and I did them anyway. You know what I mean? And I felt bad about doing them. And that caused me to drink more. I had to go, you know, cover up that guilt, cover up that shame, because I didn't like the stuff that I was doing. And so that was around 2012, all the way through 2012, stuff like that was happening. I'm getting kicked out of my mom's house every other week. Finally, my life got bad enough to where, you know, I decided, you know, I want to go back to treatment again. I want to give this sober thing another try. And this time I was serious about it. I was really serious. I didn't want to drink anymore. I didn't want to do any of the other stuff anymore. I was done for the rest of my life. It was the first time I could look at that and be okay with that picture in my mind, like, the rest of your life, you're not going to drink, you're not going to do drugs. And I'll be like, yeah, that's all right, that's okay. My life's really bad right now. And so I went to this treatment center. I did everything they wanted me to do. I answered all their questions. I went to all their little classes. I didn't argue with them. I participated. I did everything that I possibly could do to try and get myself involved, because I didn't want to live the life that I was living anymore. They made me patient of the week at that treatment center. I wore it as a badge of honor. I was very happy about it. I would have probably put it on a resume if I could have. But it's not that impressive. It's like I don't want to say something really inappropriate, but it's like being the smartest retard. But I was really happy about that, and I got out of there. 19 days, I was discharged medically. That my insurance wouldn't cover me anymore, and that I was medically stable. So they let me go, and I had gotten accepted into this Oxford house, and I was going to go live there in Wilmington, and they told me I was accepted. That all I had to do was go home for 2 days. I had to go home, get some clothes, get some bags, and go back to Wilmington, and start my life. You know, be sober, go to meetings, get a sponsor, whatever. And so all I had to do was come home and stay sober for 2 days. I came home, got some bags packed up. They told me that it was probably a good idea to go to a meeting my first night out, so I went to a meeting. I remember I went to that meeting down there at Wilderbook. Talked to Mark Christopher a little bit. He gave me some suggestions on what to do. I didn't hear him. Got out of that meeting, went home, called my cousin, got messed up. It took a whole 6 hours for me to just forget everything that happened, everything that I wanted to do, the huge desire in my heart to be sober. It took me about 6 to 8 hours to forget all of that and just ruin my chance. I got messed up the next day, went up to Wilmington the day after that. They gave me a drug test, and I got honest with them. And they told me I had to leave. So I go back out to my mom's car. She's sitting there waiting. And I was like, we got to go. And it breaks her heart. My heart's broken again. She's about to drop me off at the homeless shelter. I get a room in another halfway house. And I started getting involved in Alcoholics Anonymous because they made me go to meetings there. I got a sponsor. I started praying. I got a home group. I got a service position. I was really involved with young people in AA, YPA, and I did a whole lot of stuff with them. I was in meetings every single day. What I didn't do was I didn't do the steps. I wrote one resentment down on my 4-step, and I stopped. And that was around 3 months sober. About 3 months after that, I was still going to meetings every day, still wanting to stay sober for the rest of my life. I just had this idea that I was just going to go to meetings and stay sober. You know what I mean? I'm just going to go to these meetings every day, hang out with sober people. I'm just going to stay sober for the rest of my life. And one day I went to work, and this guy I worked with that wasn't one of us. He was a normal guy. And I just was like, hey, man, what are you doing tonight? Let's go party. Just out of the blue, out of nowhere, that strange mental blank spot happened to me. And I went and I got drunk. And I stayed drunk for the next 8 months. I got kicked out of 4 houses in rapid succession. Just one house after the other. People kicked me out because I wasn't paying bills, and and they were finding things that you don't want to find in your roommate's room. And I just wasn't a good human being to live with. And I was absolutely miserable. I was very, very lonely. Everywhere I went, I was lonely. I went to work and I felt lonely. I went to friends' houses, and I went to parties I would get, and just I think that loneliness that we feel at the end of our drinking is a mixture of loneliness and very extreme self-centeredness, because I knew that nobody felt the way I felt. I was so wrapped up in myself and my self-pity and how bad my life was and all this stuff, and you don't understand me and this and this and that, that I was unable to let anybody in. And at this point, miracles started happening in my life. AA started working in my life. I wasn't even in the program. My dad had gotten sober. I told you guys I hated this man. But he had gotten sober. And he had started trying to contact me, and I'd talk to him every now and then and stuff like that. And he knew what was going on. He knew I wasn't going to meetings anymore. He knew I was drinking, and he knew what I did when I drank. And he just sat there patiently. He'd shoot me some money every now and then. I think he gave me that money so I'd dig myself a little bit further in the hole. And it worked. He sat back and waited patiently. And when I made the phone call, he was there waiting. And he knew exactly what he was going to do with me. I went to this local treatment center around here. Some of you might know it's called the Samaritan Colony. And at that place, some really, really important things in my story began to happen. I was very raw. I was very, very broken, very, very scared. I tried getting sober before, and it didn't work. I didn't know what was going to be different about this treatment center than any other treatment center I went to. But some important things happened to me when I was there. Being in that place, there was this 12-man facility, and all they did was take us around to different meetings. Most of them were speaker meetings. They had people come in there and visit us and talk to us and tell us their stories. So that new person that I was, all I did was get a barrage of probably 100 or so different stories while I was in there. And then I had these counselors who were all in recovery, who were all ex-problem drinkers, who had all found this solution. And they were telling us this stuff. They were educating us about alcoholism. They were giving us parts of their story and stuff like that. So I had 28 days of straight identification. That's all they did was make me feel like I was one of them. You know what I mean? That's all they did was make me feel like I had absolutely no other way out than to come into these rooms and do the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And also while I was there, they started working me through the steps. I got through, in 28 days, I'd done a 5th step. And I believe it was absolutely vital to my recovery that 5th step was done in that treatment center. You know what I mean? I needed that while I was there. I needed that push while I was in that treatment center to do that 5th step. And thank God they scared me so much that I did write down every single thing I had in my arsenal and told somebody about it. And it says somewhere in the book that once you do the 5th step, this is the beginning of. We may have had what's it say? I wish I had my book up here. But it says we begin to have a spiritual experience after the 5th step. And that's what I needed. I started getting that spiritual experience after I did that 5th step in that treatment center. That way when I came out into this world and all you people around me and stuff like that and all this stuff that I was so scared of doing, I had a little bit of protection. I started getting God on my side. I did a lot of praying when I was in there. And that's one thing that I wasn't a fan of. They drove home really hard that I was going to need God when I came out here and when I in Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't like the idea of God. Like I said, I turned my back on him when I was little, and I didn't want anything to do with him. But I believed these men and what they were telling me. I believed that I was like them, so I believed that what they said worked for them was going to have to work for me. And I was really scared, not necessarily for the fact that of believing in God, but I didn't know how I was going to do that. I had no idea how. They were telling me I had to, develop this relationship with God, and I was like, I don't know how to do that. You guys are asking something impossible for me to do, asking me to develop a relationship with God. And turns out it's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I didn't know what I was going to have to do. I didn't know if I was going to have to go sit in church every day of the week, if I was going to have to read the Bible 16,000 times. Turns out I didn't have to do any of that stuff. I got out of that treatment center, and I think this is really important for me. I had a job before I went to that treatment center, and my plan when I left Wilmington was to go back to that job. I'd been to treatment before. I knew the deal. I was just going to go through those 28 days, come back, get my job, get some money, get myself stable, start paying my bills again, and my life was going to go on. Because that's the important stuff, right? Having a job, paying bills, being responsible. That's the important stuff, isn't it? That's what I thought. So about 3/4 of the way through that treatment center, they were like, "Are you willing to do what we ask you to do? Are you willing to take some direction from us?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." And they were like, "Well, we don't want you to go back to Wilmington. We want you to come to our little recovery home over here and live with us and stay here for 6 months or so." And I was really scared about that, because I really believed that the things that were going to make me better was having a job, paying my bills, having a car, having a house. You know what I mean? I thought those were like the really important things. If I could get those things squared away and get my life on track in that aspect, that I was going to be all right. And that's just not true for me. I had to get right spiritually before any of that other stuff could happen. So I agreed with him. I went to that house, and I went to a meeting my first night out. I asked a man that I had heard about to be my sponsor. He asked me a couple questions. Was I willing to go to any length for victory over alcohol? Was I really licked this time? He told me to pray about it and call him tomorrow. So I prayed to this God that I couldn't understand. I tell you, for the first 8-9 months of my recovery, my prayers, I didn't even know if they were hitting the ceiling. I didn't know those prayers were working. I had no idea. You know what I mean? I just said those prayers because people told me to say prayers. I didn't believe that they worked. Thank God they planted a seed in that treatment center that made me willing to believe. That's all I was for a very long time, was willing to believe. I didn't believe for a good little bit. If you're new in here and you're having a hard time grasping that idea of God, and you're not sure if you believe or not, if you're saying the prayers, if you're taking the action, that's good enough for Him. It was good enough for Him when I did it, so it'll be good enough for you too. So I started going through the steps with that sponsor. We sat down every Sunday morning after the Sunday morning meeting and read the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And we got through the steps. I didn't understand what in the world was going on. I really didn't. I don't know if people catch on faster than I do, or if I'm just slow, or what. But when we read, I didn't know that we were on any steps until we got to that place where it says, this is the third step in our program of recovery. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was just kind of reading with this man and hoping we were going to do something at some point, And we got on our knees and we did that third step prayer, and he asked me to go home and write another fourth step, and I did it, and I came back and I did a fifth step with him, and I think that fifth step is where I really started to get some freedom. I'd done that fifth step in there, but like I said, I was kind of made to do it. This time I didn't have to. I did that on my willingness. That was, I did it. And as soon as I did that, I started to really feel a part of Alcoholics Anonymous. I felt like I did enough work to be able to be among you people and be worthy. All the way up until that point, I really didn't feel like it. And we started doing some things. You know, I got me a little home group and stuff like that, and some guys asked me if I would come up to the colony with them. And around 6 months sober, I got to go up and start sharing my story like the guys did for me to the guys in the colony. And I didn't understand what you people talked about when you said, you know, selfishness and self-centeredness was my problem. You know, everybody in here was basically a little cardboard cutout for me to bounce my problems off of the first 6 months or so that I was in here. You weren't people that I was supposed to help. You know what I mean? Y'all were people for me to use to help me. That's what y'all were here for. You were here to help me. I was here to receive the help, and y'all were here to help. I didn't really get the fact that I was supposed to be helping also. And when I got through those steps and I started going up to the colony and talking to those guys is when I started to realize that there was people in here that needed help too. And that I actually had something that I could give to these guys. And I would go up there and I'd talk to them with a couple of other guys, and we'd share parts of our stories, and then I'd have guys come up to me and tell me how much they related to it and stuff like that. And I got to feel like I was making a difference in people's life, and I got to feel like I was having a purpose, like I had a purpose here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that was the first time I felt like I had a purpose anywhere. I never felt like I really belonged or had a purpose in this life until I started doing stuff like that. Until I started taking those actions and giving of myself like the people in here had given to me. You know? And no, don't get me wrong now, I'm not, none of these were my ideas, and I didn't start doing any of this out of virtue. People asked me to do some stuff and told me it'd probably be good for me, and I started doing it. I didn't think like, hey, I should probably go up to the colony and talk to those guys and let them know that life gets better after they get out of there. Now, if somebody told me it'd probably be a good idea to go up there and talk to them and share my story with them, and they might get something out of it. I did so many things in here just because somebody told me to do it. Because they told me it'd make my life better. And nobody's ever steered me wrong. I've had a whole lot of wonderful, great things happen in my life since I've come into Alcoholics Anonymous. And I work at this job now where it's like I got a little family where I work at. You know, Ashley works with me over there, and we got a little family that we work with over there. And I've got to see what Alcoholics Anonymous does to people who I get to be around. You know, there's something I want to talk about real quick. Everybody's heard the expression like your alcoholism affects everybody that you're around, right? You know what I mean? Like it affected my mom, it affected my sister, it affected y'all's families and stuff like that. Well, so I come into Alcoholics Anonymous and I'm given the solution of that defeats my alcoholism, that's more powerful than my alcoholism. Well, that's got to have an effect on people around me too, right? And it's got to have an even greater effect than the alcoholism did. And it's a good effect. And I've seen that happen in action. I've seen how, you know, me and Ashley and a couple other guys in recovery can work around some people, and it can actually change their lives. It can make them better people. You know what I mean? And that's just God working through us. You know what I mean? We sit around and we practice a spiritual way of life, and we get to do these wonderful things here at Alcoholics Anonymous, but we don't ever understand how much it helps the people around us outside of here too. You know what I mean? This life for me isn't just about, you know, coming into Alcoholics Anonymous and hiding out here. It's about going out there and spreading this stuff with everybody that I possibly can. Now, obviously, the new man that walks in that door is my priority. He's my primary purpose is to share this message with him. But like we have so much to offer this entire world. It's ridiculous. I've seen, just for an example, I worked with this guy for a while, and he was not a very nice fella. He's kind of a arrogant dude, and I didn't like him for a very long time. And all I did was talk to my sponsor about it, talk to some other guys about it, and I honestly believe that through working with me and working with other guys in recovery and being around that spiritual way of life, that this dude, it changed him. He became a different person over a period of months just working around us. You know what I mean? And that's why I believe so strongly. And when we get a new guy in here, that we surround him. There's nothing better for a new person than to be around a whole bunch of recovered drunks that are living this way of life. You know what I mean? We can heal people just by being around them, I think. You know what I mean? Or we can start that healing process at least. You know, I got dropped into the middle of a group of people who were seriously loving life and living Alcoholics Anonymous, and I believe that just being around them healed me. It started my healing process. Obviously, there's a lot of work that I had to do, but just being around those people helped me. You know what I mean? And it's really, you know, it kind of drops some responsibility on your shoulders to be trying to dig into this thing and to do what this thing asks you to do because of the impact it can make on somebody. It's real, and I believe that. Now, when I came out of that treatment center, I had this really skewed view on what life was going to be like. I thought I was going to have to be ducking and diving people. I was very scared to come back to my hometown. I thought that I was going to, you know, have to really avoid people that I knew. I thought that I was going to have to, you know, look around every corner. If I saw you, I was probably going to have to search your pockets and make sure you didn't have anything that wasn't supposed to be around me. Because I thought that that's what my life was going to be. I thought my life was going to be a constant battle of making sure that I didn't drink or get messed up in any way. I thought I was going to have to fight that every day. And I kind of, from being here for a little while now, I know that I haven't had to wake up any time in the past almost 3 years and make the decision to not drink today. You know, I wake up in the morning and I take some action. You know, I don't even wake up in the mornings and ask God to keep me sober today. You know, I wake up in the morning and I ask God, my first prayer before I even open my eyes is, God, will you please help me to be a maximum service to you and your kids today? Please show me what I can do for your children today. Because that's what's going to keep me sober. My actions on how I can help you guys, what I can do for y'all, those are the things that's going to keep me sober. It's not just God keeping me sober, you know what I mean? He's not just going to, you know, all right, you're sober. You know what I mean? There's some work that I got to do. There's some stuff that I have to get involved with. There's some actions that I have to take. And after a little bit, it becomes not about staying sober anymore. It becomes, how can I be a service to you? Because what can I do for you? And that staying sober thing kind of, it's very important to me. And it's, you know, it's kind of, it needs to be there. I need to be sober, but it kind of becomes secondary. My real purpose today is to fit myself to be a maximum service to God and His children, not to just stay sober. And I'm free from alcohol and drugs. You know what I mean? I've got a fiance, and it's one of the wonderful things that's happened in my life today. She's not alcoholic. You know what I mean? There's beer in my refrigerator right now, I think, and I don't care. You know, I get to be around that, and I'm not scared. I'm not in any danger of getting drunk or picking up that beer. I'm not worried about that. I'm not in any danger of having that strange mental blank spot anymore because God's protecting me, and He always is. You know what I mean? I make sure that I wake up in the morning, I take those spiritual actions, I try and be a service to God's kids throughout the day, and God protects me. You know what I mean? This isn't anything that I'm doing. I'm not keeping myself sober. I've got absolutely it's pointless for me to even try. I don't have a choice. That choice was taken from me. I don't have a choice. I have just as much choice today as I did when I walked in these rooms almost 3 years ago. You know what I mean? So why even try and stay sober? It's not my job. All I try to do is help God's kids, and I don't have to worry about getting drunk anymore. I don't have to worry about picking up a drink. It's promised to me. In those 10-step promises, it's promised that I'm safe. I'm safe and protected. I've been placed in a position of neutrality, and I don't have to worry anymore. I don't have to fight alcohol. I was moving her out of her house in Rockingham a few months back. She was moving down to Moore County, and she had these jars of moonshine that sat on her counter. And I walked around these things, saw them every single day for for months and never wanted to drink them. But we were moving, and I was like, babe, what do you want me to do with these moonshine jars? And she's like, well, just go dump them out. Y'all are weird. That dude last week, that if y'all heard him speak, he had a really good point. Like, they need to be studied, not us. Because she asked me to dump out jars of moonshine, and I felt really bad doing it. All I could think of was some poor alcoholic could be using these right now. I didn't want them, but somebody wanted them. I know that. But that's the gift, you know what I mean? That's the wonderful thing about Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I was that guy that couldn't say no to a drink. I couldn't not pick up. I couldn't not put it down. You know what I mean? I always needed that. I always had to be messed up. And now I don't even have to fight it anymore. I'm completely and totally free. You know what I mean? My life is really good. I've experienced some really, really wonderful things as a result of this program. And all I have to do is wake up and continue on trying to live in that third step decision that I made a while back. You know what I mean? I wake up and I ask God what I can do for His kids today, and I go through the day and I try and live up to that. Good thing about the cool thing is I fail constantly, and I still get the gift. So you don't have to be perfect. I fail miserably at this sometimes. But I still get the gift. I still get to be free, and I still get to be sober. My life is really good today, and it's all because of Alcoholics Anonymous and God. If it wasn't for you guys when I walked in here, when I came in, you guys welcoming me in and telling me what to do and showing me what you guys did, I wouldn't have the life that I do now. And I believe that it's my job to try and pass it on to the next guy that comes into these rooms. And I get the wonderful opportunity to sponsor a couple of men right now who bug the hell out of me. But I love them, you know what I mean? I love the fact that I can go to these guys or they come to me and they bring me their problems, and I get to sit there and listen to whatever they have on their plate today. You know what I mean? And I get to get off that phone call or get out of that meeting with them, and it's like I have no cares in the world. You know what I mean? I've never been able to be, and there's just so many other things. You know, I'm a son. I get to be a good son to my mom today. I get to be a good son to my dad. I get to be a good brother to my sister. You know, all that stuff is just absolutely wonderful, but it's all contingent on how much work I put into this program. You know what I mean? If I stopped coming here, if I stopped doing this stuff, I know it'd be just a matter of time before I got drunk again. You know what I mean? This is so important to me, and I love it with all my heart, and I just hope that I get to keep doing it for another day. Thanks.